Hi lovelies, Cory here. Welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I just wanted to pop on here really quick and just have a very honest and open chit chat with you guys about a tool that I work with quite a bit that I feel like for a lot of people, there are a lot of misconceptions floating out there. And I just kind of wanted to lay it all out there. I've talked about this tool in Instagram posts and Facebook posts before, and that is the spirit board. Okay, this is one of my spirit boards. This was a custom created board. I had this made for me back in 2012. It's dated April 2012 by a very, very lovely artist here in San Diego named Benita. And it's a great love of mine. I love this tool. I love this board. Benita put a lot of love and energy when she created this board. And as you can see, it's got the English alphabet around it. We've got numbers down here at the bottom. And then we also have Bridget's cross here in the center. And at the time that I had it created, I was working quite a lot with Bridget. Bridget is a goddess that I work with quite a bit on a personal level, as well as, you know, with other clients too. So this board will always be with me. It's always going to hold a special place in my heart. I absolutely adore it. And I use it regularly. I'm talking like multiple times a week. There were a few years there where I was using it just about every other day. So pretty regularly for well over 6 years, almost, you know, going into 7. And I feel like spirit boards get a bit of a bad rap. Okay, so you may all be familiar with the Ouija board, right? Okay, so what the Ouija board is marketed as a toy. Okay, you're gonna find it in the games section at Target or KB Toy Store back in the day, Toys R Us back in the day. Both those stores, sadly, no longer around. But you may even find it in Walmart. Any store that has like a toy section will probably be selling Ouija boards. Now, Ouija is basically the brand name, but what the board actually is a spirit board. So in the, 19th century, 1800s, spiritualism in America was a huge thing. And a lot of folks would have, channeling sessions and use spirit boards. Now, what you're probably used to seeing is the alphabet, a yes, no, a maybe, perhaps, a hello and goodbye, and then the numbers. And then you'll see these boards used with a planchette, and that's that little triangle with the circle cut out of it, okay, in conjunction with the board, right? This board, as you can see, does not have a planchette. Okay, I don't typically use them because it's not my tool of choice. What I use in conjunction with my spirit boards are pendulums. Okay, and if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that pendulums are kind of my jam. I love them. In fact, the reason why I had this board made was because I had been creating and working with pendulums for over 4 months at that point. And so I had a board custom made specifically to use with pendulums, having zero interest in using a planchette. If you use one though, that's perfect too. The board will work with a planchette or a pendulum. It's more or less preference with the channeler or reader that's using the board, right? So, and in addition to that, you can put any alphabet on there. You can put any alphabet. You can have numbers, you cannot have numbers. I've seen folks that have made boards with, you know, the angelic alphabet, with so Enochian alphabet, which hard to read, with other, you know, alphabets on here. In particular, I, after having this board commissioned, made a Elder Fjork rune board. Okay, so this is a spirit board. Okay, this was created and dedicated to communicating specifically with Odin. I painted it. I didn't seal it, but the paint has held up for a long time. I painted this in 2012 as well, towards the end of 2012. I didn't date it. I really should have, but painted it shortly after my son was born. And I love it. I still use it pretty regularly, not as often as I use my wooden board here, but I do use it quite a bit. So you can see that there are different styles. You can even find boards from artisans on Etsy. Now, what I want to get into, the heart of this video, is using boards. I've seen a lot of folks recently, you know, post questions on, hey, has anybody used any one of these boards? What's it like using one of these boards? Hey, what are people's thoughts on the Ouija board? Now, Hollywood has not helped this situation at all by portraying the Ouija board, even creating movies around it, where folks have, usually teenagers, have gotten together, you know, typically with the planchette and the board, specifically the Ouija board, the actual marketed game in general, and contacted some sort of demonic entity who has, now that they've magically been contacted and said hello, is now wreaking havoc on these kids' lives. Okay. So let's go back to the surgence of spiritualism that I talked about in the 1800s and how these boards came about. So spiritualism was a huge, it was all the rage, you know, in the late 19th century. And these boards were pretty prevalent. And so a company decided to market this board, branded it Ouija, and has been selling them ever since. And in the spiritualist community, these boards were used specifically for mediumship. So the boards were used in order to contact departed loved ones, those who'd crossed beyond the veil, and, you know, really more for comfort, to get messages from their departed loved ones, to hear their voice again. Not actually hear, because obviously, you know, you're spelling words out on a board, but just to make contact again and get that peace of mind that your departed loved ones are at peace, they're doing okay, if they had any messages for them, etc. So it's used, it has been used really since its inception as a tool for communication. Okay, we've got a veil between our world and the astral worlds, including the other world, however you want to refer to it. The Summerland is, you know, those of us of Celtic paganism often refer to it as. So the realm of those who have parted on. It's a way to communicate with them, receive messages, rather than a direct download that a lot of mediums use today, right? They hear messages through clairaudience or receive messages through claircognizance, it's inner knowing, clairsentience, clairvoyance, inner seeing. So those direct download messages don't need a tool. But for those of us that benefit from using a tool to receive those messages, spirit boards are actually a really great form of communication. Now, with the whole demonic forces entity thing, I can see where a lot of folks would have a negative experience working with a spirit board, especially if their first experience is working with a Ouija board. Here's what I want to stress and clarify. When it comes to any sort of divinatory tool or any sort of mediumship tool, divination is for divining the unknown. Okay, that's, you know, the root meaning of that. And then for mediumship is for referring to communication with other, typically those who've crossed over, but also I kind of consider different types of mediumship also connecting with spirit guides, astral beings, deity, etc. Okay, that's the direct download, right? So that being said, there are absolutely ways that you can have a negative experience with one of these boards. And that all has to do with your expectation, your intention, and how you're approaching this tool. It is a tool, okay? So if we think of the spirit board here as a tool of communication, okay? I want you to think of this board like a keyboard on your phone, okay? Like you're receiving text messages from the other side, from across the veil, okay? Here's the thing about phones, right? If you punch in a direct number on your phone, you're going to get on the other end the person that you dialed, right? So if I punch in my brother's cell phone number, he's going to answer and be like, hey sis, what's up? Okay. There's a very, very, very small percentage his wife's going to answer the phone. But it's, you know, 99.9% of the time, I'm going to get my brother. Okay. So for this analogy, we're going to do, you know, who you're dialing is who you're getting, right? If I text him, he would be the one to respond. Yeah. Now, if I take my phone and I punch in a random sequence of numbers and I'm like, all right, who are you getting? You know, like a random drunk dial. Who knows who's going to be on that other end? You know, it could be the nicest person in the world and we can have an awesome conversation. Or it could be someone who's like, who the hell is this bee? You know, I'm gonna screw with her and, you know, mess with me because I randomly dialed them, you know. Hey, you know, if I randomly dial somebody at 1 a.m. drunk, they have absolutely every right to fuck with me. We'll lay that out there. All right. Now, that being said, we could also not get a pickup, right? I don't ever answer a phone number that I don't recognize. I figure if it's somebody that really needs me, they will leave a voicemail so that I know who the hell they are and I can call them back based on what it is that they need. If it's just, you know, a drop-off though, and they don't leave a message, I ain't calling you back. Obviously, it wasn't that important to get a hold of me. So, same thing's going to happen with the board, right? If you approach a spirit board with the intention that you're going to be communicating with a specific loved one, you know, or more importantly, the way that I use these the majority of the time is to connect with either my higher self, you know, my intuition, or with a spirit guide of mine, right? And I do goddess readings on these as well. So I will ask the lady to come through in an incarnation that she feels is appropriate for the client, you know, a specific deity. So if I approach the board, okay, and dial someone specific, that's who's going to come through, okay? Your intention with how you approach communicative tools is hugely important, because that's going to determine the experience that you have and how you're going to be responded to, okay? The type of response you're going to get. So just something to keep in mind. I think a lot of times kids approach the Ouija board expecting that they're going to have some creepy, you know, shadowy experience. And then they get freaked out when that's the exact experience that they get, right? You kind of scare the shit out of yourself. And then you never want to work with a board again, even though it may end up being one of the most beneficial tools that you've ever used. So it's just kind of a shame that that's a lot of people's first experience. And I wanted to come on here and just sort of bring clarity around that. So you've never used a board before. You want to get a spirit board. What's your approach, right? How do you make sure that you're dialed into the right person? Well, I already mentioned intention. Know who you want to talk to before you dial, okay, right? Make sure that you set that intention for, okay, I am wanting to communicate with my primary spirit guide. Okay, perfect, right? If you know your primary spirit guide's name, call them out as you sit down with the board, okay, right? Set your board in front of you. Do whatever it is you normally do to set your space, right? Create sacred space for yourself. For me, because my practice is rooted in Celtic Wicca and paganism, I will cast circle first. Set my space. I have a spirit candle that I light. It's almost empty. Been doing a lot of readings recently, and then I just replace them, consecrate them, and then we'll light them. But I will light my spirit candle, and that kind of is my signal to spirit that I'm ready to receive messages. Okay, that's just my personal practice. I set down my board, I'll clean it, and I don't mean physically clean. Obviously, I do dust this board, and I take really good care of it. But I will do some sort of smudging or spray, and just clear the energy from myself and from the board and the pendulum that I'm working with. Then I will ask my pendulum to connect with my board. And once that happens, then I'll actually say, you know, who it is that I want to call. I will call out to them. So in the example that I was giving, we'll talk about my primary spirit guide, who I call Uncle Jerry. He does not like working with pendulums, but we'll see. Yes, okay. So Jerry is willing to, for the sake of demonstration, come forward and work with the pendulum. So probably should have asked that question before we started the video so that there wasn't an awkward conversation, but he's on board, so we'll go with it. So have the board in front of you, okay, right? And then just saying, you know, refer to your guide, Uncle Jerry, I would like to connect with you in order to receive messages, guidance, wisdom from you. If you are ready and willing to communicate with me, please let me know. And he is actually giving me a yes. For me, in my pendulum work, a forward and backwards motion is yes, where a side to side motion is no. So Once we are synced up, it's basically me dialing him and saying, hi, and him saying, hi, and then we start our conversation. And I begin to ask the questions that I have to ask of him. And then when I'm done, we're hanging up the phone, right? We've had our conversation. I've gotten the answers that I'm going to receive. At that point, thank you so much, Uncle, for reaching through and connecting with me this day. May you depart in peace and in power. So mote it be. And then for me, when the pendulum stops, that guide has departed. And I know that they've left, and we are now disconnected. And then I'll cleanse and clear the board and the pendulum again, and go about with whatever other activities that I need to do. I'll take down circle, and then we're done. So this is my setup and has been my practice for, like I said, over 6 years now, about 6.5. And I've never once spoken to or connected with anything I would consider even remotely demonic or not quite right. I've never connected with anyone I didn't intend to connect with, okay? So that's my practice. Does that need to be your practice? No, you can modify that however you choose to and however it fits into your practice. But a good rule of thumb is, again, making sure that your tools are cleansed, making sure that you approach your readings with intention, and above all, respect for your guides. You're taking up their time too, right? And if you're just going to be dicking around with them, they're probably not going to be very responsive. Second thing that I would do, if you want an added buffer, right? You really want to make sure that your board and your tools are locked down. Do a dedication on your planchette and your spirit board, or if you're like me and using a pendulum, on your pendulum as well. What's a dedication? So if you've never done a dedication before, you've never dedicated or consecrated your tools, there's a very easy way to do that. Make sure your tools are energetically cleansed, okay? And then you're going to want to state your intention, okay, in order to seal these up. Think of it like putting your board, okay, if we're still using the phone analogy, you're putting your number on the do not call registry, right? So that only those guides and entities that you want to communicate with are going to be able to come through, okay? Your number's blocked. So pendulum first, you know, you'll want to, again, probably do this in sacred space. I do. You don't have to cast a full circle. If that's not part of your practice, by all means, don't feel obligated to do it, okay? This is a very simple dedication as well. This can be as simple or elaborate as you make it. Just make sure that your tool's energetically cleansed using the method that you choose to, right? And for me, holding the pendulum or the planchette, if you want to use that, in the palms of your hands, okay? You're going to picture the object cupped in your hands, surrounded by bright light. Now, this could be white light, this could be purple light, this could be whatever you associate with protection, okay? Could be like a shadowy gray light, however you view it, okay? So, just bright light. Could be rainbow. Whatever you prefer. And then see that light penetrating through your tool, in and out of it, moving through it, surrounding it, filling it up. But that light is not only encasing it and protecting it, but also infusing it, okay? Feel yourself connecting with that energy and with that tool. And then you're going to want to state your intention. You don't have to do this out loud. You can do it in your head. And you don't have to use these exact words, okay? But this is going to be something along the lines of, I dedicate this pendulum to be a tool for communication, to connect me to those ancestors that I wish to communicate with, departed loved ones, my own personal spirit guides in deity, and my higher self, those who only have my greatest good at heart, and only those whom I wish to communicate with of my own free will. For as I say it, so shall it is, or so shall it be. Okay? And so it is, so mote it be. However you would like to end it, end it. Okay? And then you're all geared up. It's dedicated. And then you'll do a similar thing with the board. And what I do for that is I hover both hands over it. You can also hold it front and back. And then you just repeat the process. Okay? The same process that you used with your pendulum. You can consecrate these tools in the same fashion. And again, you guys, the internet is your friend. Okay? There are dozens of YouTube videos out there about dedication and consecration. There are dozens of blog posts and articles. If you just Google pendulum dedication or spirit board dedication, you'll get a lot of stuff popping up. Okay? Pick elements that resonate with you, that feel right to you, and give you that comfort and peace of mind that, yes, this is how I want my dedication to be for my tools. Okay? And in a similar fashion, you can absolutely undedicate, you know, your pendulum or board if you ever choose to at a later date. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you dedicate a pendulum or board to connecting with a very specific spirit guide or deity, say for example, I dedicated this pendulum and this board to only communicating with my guide Jerry. Well, then every time I picked up the board and pendulum, that would be who would come through. He's like, yeah, I would totally do that. Every time. I wouldn't even have to announce who I wanted to communicate with. It would be Jerry's pendulum, and the second I picked it up, he'd be like, yeah, what you want? And I do have pendulums that are dedicated to a specific guide. That's pretty normal. If at some point in time that guide fell out of wanting to work with that pendulum, or I felt out of resonance with that pendulum, something happened and I wanted to undedicate it or broaden it up, right? Same formula as your dedication, only you're stating your intention to undedicate the pendulum and clear the energy from it back to its original state. Okay? So again, are these tools scary? Only if you approach them terrified, which I understand is probably a common way for a lot of people to approach them. And it's because of what Hollywood shows you. Just keep in mind that Hollywood is making movies to make money. And a lot of us humans like being scared. I am a huge fan of horror flicks. Okay? Absolutely. Was raised on them. My mom loved them. The brother that I spoke about also loves them. The three of us would constantly go to horror movies and just like have a fabulous time. Especially in October. We would binge watch all of those. Like all the classics to Friday the 13th, The Exorcist. We would run down all of them, Nightmare on Elm Street, and go through all of those, and then some newer ones. You know, the original Saw, not really all of the, you know, 2 through 8. And more modern day ones, Cabin in the Woods. Oh my gosh, yes, I know that there's a lot of comedy to that, but it's also a genuinely good horror flick that's making fun of horror flicks. Let's be honest. So, huge fan, okay? But that's not the reality of what the boards were created for historically, or how modern day witches use them in 2018. Okay, I'm not approaching the board being like, okay, are there any demons in my house today? I don't know why anyone would logically do that. But I can understand teenagers wanting to terrify each other with a toy. Now, if you happen to have a Ouija board, like the actual toy in your house, you can absolutely use it as a legit spirit board. I would just personally definitely clear it of energy before using it, and then I would do a dedication. Okay, lock that puppy down, because it's made of plastic, which isn't a great energy conduit, just as far as materials go. I've never had super awesome luck with plastic. Some people have. I haven't been that lucky. So I would probably dedicate it, maybe even consecrate it, you know, a little bit of salt, a little bit of water, spray it down, wipe it off, and then good to go. You can absolutely use a Ouija board in a spirit board capacity. That's what it was designed for. But if it sets you on edge and you're like, that's just a creepy design, go with, you know, a more modern day version. Have one custom made. Paint your own, like I did with the Elderfuric one. But have fun. And I hope this alleviates your fear of working with these tools, the board in particular, if that's been something that's holding you back. If it's giving you a creepy vibe, make your own. If anything, as you're creating it, your energy gets put into the board, and it really bonds with you and connects to your energy. And I find out I get better results that way from a board either I designed, you know, hunted down specifically for me, or one that I've made. So up to you guys. Just kind of wanted to throw it out there, get all of my thoughts collected into a video, because there have been a lot of posts recently, and it's just kind of bumming me out that so many people have had such a negative experience, that I wanted to share with you guys all of the really positive experiences. As I mentioned, I use these boards in client readings as well for others. I've channeled messages from loved ones for folks. I have connected more people than I can count to their spirit guides for the first time using these boards, and it has just brought so much joy to my life that it's really hard for me to like wrap my head around someone not being open to that experience. Which, if it's not a tool for you, it's not a tool for you. You'll find the right tool for you. But if it's like that Hollywood fear holding you back, I really hope that this video has dispelled some of that, if not all of that, for you. So, any questions about boards? Leave them in the comments below. I hope that you guys got something out of this video, and I hope that you'll stick around for the next one. But until I see you in that next video, lovelies, blessed be.